Chaim, Chaim.
Chaim, welcome, Rabbi.
Nice to be here. Behan Mutlu was having a fun night with his friends. Behan lived in Inegol in northwestern Turkey. And Behan was a nice guy, but he liked to drink. He was a heavy drinker. And he was out partying with his friends. And he had a little too much to drink. And when his friends left and they went home, he wandered off. He didn't really make it. He had a hard time finding his way, and he ended up in the woods at the edge of the town. And he got lost somewhere, and he fell asleep. His wife got worried after a while. She started calling his friends. Did you see Behan? It's been hours since we. Right? She immediately calls the police. She files a missing person report, and the police are very, very on top of it. They organize a search party. He must have wandered off into the woods. This apparently wasn't the first time it happened. So they organize a search party, and they start. Many people here. There's a missing person. They want to join in. They want to help out. They get a lot of volunteers, and they go out into the woods, and they start looking around to find the missing person. In the meantime, Behan woke up, and he sees in the distance people with flashlights, so he rushes over, and he's like, what's going on? And he tells them, there's a missing person, we're looking for somebody. Now, Behan was a bit drunk, but he was always very helpful, and he's a nice guy. So he says, let me help you. He pulls out his phone, and he starts shining his flashlight everywhere, right? And they're going around, and he spends the next 2 hours going around looking for the missing person. I don't know the exact method that these first responders used, but apparently they didn't say the name of the person they were looking for. So that they're going around with flashlights looking for somebody. After like 2 hours, they come near another group of first responders who are also busy looking for Behan. And this other group decided to call out his name. So they're like, Behan! And Behan's like, hey, 1 second, who's the person you're looking for again? And they're like, yeah, Behan Mutlu. And he's like, oh, okay, that's me. Right? So the police immediately took him in. They took a statement from him. They took him home. And the police let him off. But Behan said he was a little afraid of how his family would react to the story. But his family wasn't very happy. So we might all sit and laugh at Behan, right? Behan spent over 2 hours looking for himself. But the truth is, we all spend a lot of time looking for ourselves. Some of us spend hours, some of us spend days, weeks, months, years. And there are people who spend an entire lifetime looking for yourself, looking for who we are, what is our purpose, what is our mission in this world, trying to find ourselves. Chaim. This week's Parsha, we learn about a mission that Avram gives to his trusted servant Eliezer. He calls Eliezer, he says, I have a special job for you. And before I send you on this mission, I want you to take an oath. I want you to swear to me by Hashem, the God of the heavens and the God of the earth. Now, this is very strange. The commentaries discuss why did he need to take an oath. The different reasons are given. But we find many other oaths that were taken in the Torah. Right? Yaakov made his son Yosef take an oath. But he doesn't tell him that you need to swear by Hashem, the God of the heavens and the God of the earth. This is a bit of an unusual expression. And Eliezer's mission doesn't seem to be related to the heavens and the earth. So why did Avram choose such an expression? Why did he make Eliezer swear by Hashem, the God of the heaven and the God of the earth? So in order to understand this, we could take a look at a medrash that discusses the creation of the heavens and the earth. Right? And it discusses the names. In Hebrew, the words for heaven are Shamayim, and the word for earth is Aretz. And the Medrash discusses these names. Shamayim comes from the words Eish and Mayim, fire and water, that it's made of. And then it discusses the Eretz. And the Medrash says in Bereshis Rabbah, Lama Nikush Ma'eretz, why was it called Eretz? So the word Eretz comes from the word Ratzasa. Sharatzasa lasis etzayin kaina. Now the word Ratzasa in Hebrew is a little bit difficult to translate because it actually has two different meanings. It could come from the shirish of ratzain or ratza, which means a desire or a want. And it can also come from the word ritza, which means to run. And in general, in Hebrew, when you have two words that share very similar letters, there's a connection between them. Something that I have a strong desire to do, I'm usually going to rush and run towards that thing. And the Medrash is telling us that the earth had a strong desire and it ran to do the will of Hashem. That's why it was called Eretz. Now, the obvious question is, we know that the Gemara and Rosh Hashanah tells us that Shimon Levi says that every single creation that Hashem created wanted to do the will of Hashem, was happy to be created, and was happy to do the will of Hashem. And if we're talking about which creations have a strong desire to serve Hashem, if I were to ask you which creations have a strong desire to serve Hashem, you probably wouldn't choose the earth, right? We say every day in davening about the angels in heaven, right? They all serve Hashem with great love and fear. And, you would imagine the angels are the ones who serve Hashem, who have a strong desire and who run to serve Hashem. Maybe the heavens want to serve Hashem, the sun, the moon, the planets are constantly moving and bowing down to Hashem, right? Even maybe animals, people, you could say they want to serve Hashem. What about the earth? Why does the Medrash say the earth is the one that wanted to serve Hashem, and that's why it received its name? So, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, the great tzaddik Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhensk, was sitting one Shabbos afternoon with his Hasidim during Shalashudis, and he suddenly closed his eyes, and he went into a deep trance, and his face turned red. It was flaming like fire, as the Hasidim said, and the Hasidim realized that the Rebbe was ascending. His neshama was leaving this world and was going up to heaven. This was something that happened from time to time. And they sat around, they sang the gunim, they waited. After an extended period of time, Rabbi Elimelech opened up his eyes and he began to tell his Hasidim what he had just experienced. He said that my soul just went up to heaven. I was taken up to Gan Eden and I met the great tzaddik, Rabbi Avraham Azulai, the grandfather of the Chidah, the author of many Sfarim. The most famous sefer is the Kabbalistic work Chesed LaAvram. According to some opinions, his yard site is actually tonight, 21st of Cheshvan. According to other opinions, it's actually on Monday, next week. And he said, I was talking to Rabbi Avraham Azulai, and we were discussing the reward that tzaddikim get in Gan Eden. Rabbi Avraham Azulai had passed away many years earlier. 100 years earlier or so. And he told me that he would give me a tour of Gan Eden. He would take me to some of the upper chambers in Gan Eden so I could see the reward of the tzaddikim. So he began showing me around, and we ascended from one level to the other. And as we were going higher, we felt the holiness increasing, the great lights were increasing. And finally we came to a upper elevated chamber in Gan Eden. And we saw in front of us a big yeshiva, and there were many great tzaddikim inside learning. And we approached the yeshiva, we wanted to look inside, and suddenly I saw a familiar face, says the Rebbe Elimelech. He says, I saw someone from Lezhensk, someone from our town, someone I knew passed away recently. So I called out and I said, hey, Matel, how are you? It was Matel the bookbinder, who passed away a few years ago. And Matel immediately motioned to me. He said, shh, shh. And he came close and he said, don't let anybody hear you say that. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, over here, I'm not called Matel. Over here, I'm called Harav Mordechai. Rabbi Mordechai, not Matel. And in heaven, it's not like over here where everybody gets titles. You give a little bit of a donation and suddenly you get a bunch of titles attached to the front of your name. In heaven, they actually call you by your proper titles. And you don't want to mistakenly give somebody the wrong titles or miss out on titles that someone deserves. So, okay, of course, Harav Mordechai. I didn't realize I have to call you Harav Mordechai. Maybe you could tell me how you got this title. I wasn't aware. Were you a hidden tzaddik? And he says, no, I wasn't a hidden tzaddik. I was a simple bookbinder. So what happened? Tell me the story. So Rab Mordechai began to tell me. He says, after I passed away, my soul ascended to heaven and I came before the heavenly courts. And of course, I was standing in front of the heavenly court and they brought out the big scales, right, that everybody thinks about and is afraid of. And they began to pile on the two sides, right? A couple of malachim came, a couple of white angels came, and they brought out the mitzvahs that I did. I didn't do too many mitzvahs in my life. I tried, but how much was I able to accomplish? And they put on the mitzvahs, and then a bunch of black angels came out, and they started to pile on the sins that I did. did my best, but I made mistakes from time to time. And the scales were looking pretty balanced over there. I was getting a little nervous. And suddenly, I hear the wheels of a wagon coming. And I look up and I see this big wagon pulling up to the gates of the court. And I look behind the wagon, I see another wagon. There's like a whole line of wagons waiting out there. And this angel comes in, he opens up the door of the wagon, and he pulls out a heavy sack, and he walks into the court, and he opens up the sack, and the sack is full of books, full of svarim. And he takes the sack and he starts piling it up on the scale on the side of the mitzvahs. And the judges look at the angel like, what's this? And he says, the angel says, let me tell you. This Motl, the bookbinder, let me tell you what he would do every morning. Every morning he would get up, he would go to shul, he would try to daven, he didn't know how to daven very well. He would rush out after davening to his work. He had to get to work. He worked very hard. And he would come into his bookbinding shop. He had a big pile of books in front of him. And this is what he would say. Every morning, this is how he would start off his day. He would say, Hashem, how I wish, how much I long and desire to be able to study your Torah. But unfortunately, I never received a proper education. I'm not gifted. I don't have a good mind. I'm able to understand Torah. Not only that, I'm busy working all day. I don't have that much time to learn Torah. But thank you, Hashem, for giving me the tremendous honor of having a part in fixing up the holy books of your Torah. You've given me an opportunity. I am able to partake of the Torah study of so many people. Every day I come in, there are hundreds of svarim that I can fix up. Please, Hashem, first of all, thank you for giving me this honor, and please, Hashem, consider it as if I did my part in the learning of Torah. And then he would lovingly take the sefer and begin to make sure, fix up every little crease in the sefer. If there are any words that were a little bit scratched off, he would try to fix it up. He would make sure he wouldn't cut, if there are any pages falling out, he would lovingly fix it. If there were things that he couldn't fix, he would put it away in a special box where he would store it respectfully. So the angel turns to the court and he says, for him, this was his way of learning. Right? How many people do you know that learned every day? It's 100 svarim every day. Right? Look at these wagons. We have wagons filled with hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands. I don't know, hundreds. I don't know how many books he did in his lifetime. Tens of thousands of books. Right? Maybe even hundreds of thousands of books. And they said, wow, such a big Talmud Chacham. He learned hundreds of thousands of books. This was his way of learning. So he should go up to the highest level with the greatest Talmidei Chachamim who spent their whole life learning Torah. And the court decreed that I should go up to the highest level with the greatest Talmidei Chachamim. But I became very nervous, right? I was afraid I wouldn't fit in. Can you imagine? They send me up to the big yeshiva and I never learned the word of Torah in my life. So the angels are looking at me and they realize that I'm a little nervous. They say, don't worry, we're going to give you some training. We'll make sure you fit in over there. And that's what they did. They actually taught me. I was lifted up to this level. So this Motl, this Rav Mordechai, had an interesting choice. He could have came in every morning and said, "Oy Nebuch, I don't have an ability to learn Torah. I have to sit and bind these books, right? Fix these books up." Or he could say, "This is the job that Hashem gave me. This is my way of serving Hashem. This is my way of learning Torah." And that was his choice. He chose to say that instead of getting upset that he's not able to learn, that he's not able to sit and daven like he wants, he said, Hashem, this is the way that you gave me to serve you. Consider this as if I am learning Torah. This is my way of learning Torah. Rav Elimelech's brother, my great uncle, Rav Zusha of Anipali, when he was on his deathbed, his Hasidim were gathered around him and he said, I'm soon going to go up to the heavenly court and I'm a little nervous. Why am I nervous? Why am I afraid? He says, I'm not afraid that when I come up there, they're going to ask me, why didn't you learn Torah like Moshe Rabbeinu? Because if they tell me that, I'm going to say, I'm not Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm not Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm Zusha. I'm not afraid that they're going to turn to me and they're going to say, why didn't you do chesed, do acts of kindness like Avraham Avinu? I'm going to say, my name is Zusha. My name is not Avraham Avinu. But then they're going to turn to me and they're going to say, Zusha, why weren't you the best Zusha that you could have been? And for that, I'm not going to have an answer. For that, I'm not going to have an answer. And this is true for every person. right? We can sit and think about who we're not and who we would like to be. Or we could say, who did Hashem create us? And how could we serve Hashem the best way? Knowing who we are, right? Like Behan, who was busy looking for himself. We all have to look and figure out who we are and try to figure out how we can serve Hashem as the best, as me as Al-Chanan. How could I be the best Al-Chanan I can be? And if Matul the bookbinder serves Hashem as the best Matul the bookbinder, he turns into Rav Mordechai as one of the greatest Talmidei Chachamim. The Gemara tells us the famous story, everybody knows the story, of Hillel Azakin, Hillel the elder. When Hillel was not the elder, before many, many years earlier, when Hillel was very young, he traveled all the way from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. He didn't know how to learn much, and he didn't have a lot of money. And he used to work very hard. Every day he used to go to work all day, and he used to earn a half a dinner. He used to earn 50 cents every day, right? And what did he do with 50 cents? He took 25 cents. He went to the Beis Medrash, where the great Talmidei Chachamim, Shmai and Avtalion, were teaching Torah, and there was a guard at the door who said, you want to go in, you got to pay. And he would give the guard 25 cents, half of his daily wages, to learn Torah. And the other half he would use to buy food for himself and his family, whatever his family needed. And the Gemara tells us the famous story that one day he wasn't able to find work. It was a very cold winter day. He wasn't able to find work, and he didn't have any money, and he wasn't upset that he wouldn't have food for his family. I mean, that must have bothered him, and not as much as the fact that he wouldn't be able to learn Torah. So he went to the Beis Medrash, and he says to the guard, please let me in. And the guard says, I'm sorry, this is my job. No, you don't pay, no money, no entry. And Hillel desperately looks around for a way to learn, and he tries to listen to the window, but he can't hear. So he finally climbs up on the roof, and he lays down on the skylight to listen to the words of Torah. It begins to snow, and Hillel is soon covered up with snow. He falls asleep under the snow, and he stays there the whole night. And finally, the next morning, when the Chachamim are trying to learn in the morning, and they suddenly notice it's dark, and they look up and they see the image of Hillel, right? And they bring him in. It was Shabbos. They're actually Machal Shabbos for him. And right, this is a story we all learned. We all know this story. So, Chaim's a 10-year-old boy, and he's very excited. You know why? Because Chaim's school, they're having a dinner. The school is having a dinner, and they're putting on a show, a play for the dinner. Chaim's grade was chosen to put on a play for the dinner, the school dinner, right? And what's the play that they're going to put on? They're going to act out the story of Hillel. Right? This story that we just said of Hillel, the well-known story. And Chaim is very, very happy because he's a very good actor. He's, good at making all different voices, making all different faces. So he's chosen to be the lead actor in the play. And what role is he given? He's given the job of being Hillel, right? And he begins to read through the script. He's very excited, but as he reads through the script, his face begins to fall and he becomes very upset. And he rushes over to his teacher, and he says, "What is this? This is the job you give me? This poor, simple guy who doesn't know how to learn. You couldn't make me one of the rabbis? Shmai of Avtalion? What type of job are you giving me?" Right? Why would I want to be Hillel? I would want to be one of the important people in the story. The Gemara says Hillel had actually a very wealthy brother named Shavna. Maybe I could take the role of Shavna. There's everybody says Shavna's not in the story. We could fit Shavna into the story. I could be a rich guy, give a lot of tzedakah. And his teacher says, Chaim, you're a fool. Hillel is the main role in this play. You're the main actor, right? The main actor in the play. The main actor in the movie is not always the richest guy and not always the smartest guy. Usually it's actually the poor, simple guy. That's usually how it works. Now, we are all taking part in a production. We're all taking part in a play. The world that Hashem created. Hashem has made a big play, a big production, and He gave each and every one of us a job, right? Now, many times we look at ourselves, at our role, and we say, we don't have a very glamorous role in this play, right? We might want a different role in the play. So there are two very obvious lessons that we can learn from this story of Chaim. First of all, even if you were to take an actor who doesn't have a very important job, right? And he were to decide he wants to do a different role, right? Let's say the guard who's standing at the entrance of the base medrash. Let's say he decides, I don't want to be a guard. I want to sit inside and learn. So he abandons his post in the middle of the play. He walks into the shul and he starts learning. What do you guys think? What would happen? He would ruin the play. Right? If you don't have a guard at the door, the whole thing doesn't work. Right? So that's the first message. First of all, even if you don't have the most important role, right? For you, this is the role that's essential. And if you don't do your part, the whole play falls apart. Right? And second of all, the most important role in the play is not decided by who's the smartest and who's the wealthiest person and who receives the most honor in the story. Because this is all a play. Now, in the play that Hashem put up, the Gemara says that each and every one of us in our lives is the main actor. Every person needs to say the whole world was created because of me. What does that mean? That means that Hashem is putting on a play and each and every one of us is a main actor in our play. If any one of us were missing the whole play, the whole production would fall apart. And I might feel like my role is not important, right? I'm not the bookbinder. Or I could say, no, this is the role Hashem gave me. Hashem gave me the task of being matul, the bookbinder. Let's see how I can be the best matul that I can possibly be. And if I do that, I'm as great as the greatest Talmidei Chachamim. There are wagons and wagons of Svarim. It's as if I learned all those books. And this is the reason why the earth is called Eretz. Right? We said that the earth wanted to do, it wanted to do the will of Hashem. And we said the angels also did. But let's think about this for a second. Yes, of course the angels wanted to do the will of Hashem. If I came over to you and I said, I'm giving you the job of being an angel. Of course we would say, I would love to be an angel and serve Hashem. You come to the sun and the moon, you say you have the job of being the sun and the moon, lighting up the world, bowing constantly to Hashem. Of course I want to do it. That's not a big deal. Right? You come to a person, you say you're going to be a person who gets to serve Hashem, a wonderful job. Even the animals do something. But you come to the earth and you say, Hashem says to the earth, I have a job for you. You're going to be the earth. Everyone's going to look down on you. Everyone's going to step on you. But the world is not going to exist without you. You have an important job. Now the earth has a choice, right? It could say, what? I don't want to be the earth. I don't want everybody to step on me. Give me a different job. Says the Medrash, no. Lama nikar shma Eretz. Why was it given the name Eretz? Sherirotzis alas is the same kind of the earth was able to recognize. This is my task. I am a main actor in this story. I have an essential role. And I want to do my role. I'm going to run to do my job. And this is also why Avram turns to Eliezer. And he says, Hashem, the God of the heaven and the God of the earth. What is going on with Eliezer? Let's take a look at Eliezer. Right? Eliezer was a great prince. According to some opinions, he was the son of King Nimrod. And he decided, I don't want to be the prince in Nimrod's palace. I want to go to serve Avram Avinu. Right? Someone who serves Hashem. I want to be Avram's trusted servant. He spends decades serving Avram faithfully. He endangers his life to serve Avram, to fight against 4 powerful kings. Not only does he serve Avram physically, he serves Avram spiritually. He's doyelo mashke, mitayrasi sharabe. He spent decades learning Torah from Avram and teaching Torah to others. And finally, the time comes. Eliezer has this amazing opportunity. Avram's only son, who he waited for so many years, is about to get married. And Eliezer, his trusted servant, has a daughter. A fine, modest, kind girl. And he goes over to Avram Avinu and he says, I have a wonderful shidduch. I've been serving you for decades. Now let's become a chutanim. What does Avram say? So there are times that shidduchim don't always work out. There are times that things don't work out. And you have to know how to be delicate when it comes to shidduchim, right? If it's not, you have to figure out the right words to use, right? He's a wonderful guy, but we're not compatible. She's a wonderful girl, but I'm looking for something else. You have to know how to say it. It's not to offend anybody. What does Avram tell Eliezer? He doesn't spare any words. He says to Eliezer, you are a grandson of Canaan, and you are cursed. I am blessed by Hashem. My son cannot marry your daughter because someone who's blessed cannot marry someone who's cursed. This is not your destiny. This is not your task. What did Eliezer say? How does Eliezer respond? How would we have reacted? Eliezer could have... And then, a minute later, Avram says to Eliezer, and by the way, I have a very special, important mission for you. I want you to travel 1,000 miles to Haran to look for a wife for my son Yitzchak. How would we have responded? Eliezer could have said, what? You just told me that I'm not good enough for Yitzchak. That I'm cursed after serving you and giving up my life, endangering my life for you for decades. And you're telling me that I cannot marry this guy. And then you want me to go and find a wife for Yitzchak? That's what you want me to do? Eliezer could have said, I'm out of here. Bye. Nice to have met you, but I'm out. So Avram turns to Eliezer and he says, I want you to swear by Hashem, who is the God of the heavens and the God of the earth. Hashem is equally the God of the heavens and the earth. You might think Hashem is much closer to the heavens, right? The earth, who needs the earth? But that's not how Hashem sees it. In Hashem's eyes, He is the God of the heavens, same way as He is God of the earth. The earth is equally as important and maybe even more important than the heavens. And yes, Eliezer, your job is not the most glamorous job. It's not the most exciting job. It's not the job that you think, that you were thinking, that you were imagining, that you were dreaming of. You were dreaming of being my mechutin. But I'm giving you a different job. Your job is to help find the wife for Yitzchak. And Eliezer accepted it. Eliezer got the message from Avram, and he accepted that job. Today actually, was the birthday of the fifth Chabad Rebbe, of Shalom Doivber, the Rebbe Rashab. Now, when the Rebbe Rashab was a young boy, he had a dream. Now, many boys have dreams, but most of the dreams are not worth telling over. But he had a very special dream. And he woke up, he immediately told over the dream to his father, and he said that in his dream, a very prominent rabbi appeared to him, and he described this rabbi, and his father was able to recognize, and he said this was the Baal Shem Tov who appeared to him. And he said as the Baal Shem Tov told him over a Dvar Torah, and he told him over a story. And this is the story that the Baal Shem Tov told him. The Baal Shem Tov said like this: when I was a young man, I think he was around 20 years old, he was accepted into as a member of a very special society, the society of hidden tzaddikim, right? The Lamed Vav Tzaddikim Nisram. Do you have any members of the society over here? Right? It's a very, very secret society. The Baal Shem Tov was accepted as a member of this society of hidden tzaddikim. And he went to meet up with the other hidden tzaddikim in the city of Brod. And he was in the city of Brod. He was walking in the marketplace. And suddenly he noticed something. He noticed this elderly Jew was walking, and he was carrying on his back. He had a heavy, heavy bag on his shoulders. And it was a hot day. He was sweating. Sweat was dripping down his face. And on top of his head, there was a fire. A pillar of fire was rising up from his head. The Baal Shem Tov looked around to see if anybody else noticed this pillar of fire, but most of the people weren't giving a second look at this guy. And then the Baal Shem Tov looked at some of the other hidden tzaddikim who were near him, Rabbi Cheskel and Rabbi Ephraim, and apparently they were also looking at this guy. They also saw this pillar of fire. So the Baal Shem Tov turns to one of the locals, one of the Jews who lived in Brod, and he says, who's that guy? And they say, oh, hey, that's Herschel Tzig. It's Herschel the goat. Hey, Herschel, how are you? And Herschel turns around, he's like, Baruch Hashem, doing well. Have a good day, Herschel the goat. Okay. The Baal Shem Tov says, maybe you could tell me a little bit about Herschel. Herschel the goat? Well, what type of... I think today the goat has some meaning. I'm not sure, but in those days, goat wasn't an honorary title. It meant something a little different, right? So Herschel the goat. Maybe tell me a little bit about Herschel the goat. And they say, well, Herschel's a porter. He's a schlepper. He goes around carrying heavy things on his back all day. And he lives alone. His wife passed away about 10 years ago. He doesn't have any children. And he spends all of his time caring for his goats. His whole house is full of goats. And he spends his time caring for the goats. He gives out goat's milk to everybody. Everybody calls him Herschel the goat. So is there anything special about him? Seems like an ordinary guy. So the Baal Shem Tov decided he has to figure out what's special about him. Why does he have a pillar of fire over his head? And the Baal Shem Tov begins following him around. He watches him daven. He davens very quickly. He doesn't do much. He follows him around in his work. He's a nice guy. He does everything. He's an honest person. But the Baal Shem Tov doesn't notice anything special. And he wants to get to the bottom of this. So he walks into shul one day, and he says, that's it. I'm going to fast for 3 days. And I'm going to daven to Hashem to reveal to me the secret of Herschel Sig, of Herschel the goat. And he did. He spent the next 3 days. And he spent the next 3 days fasting. At the end of the third day, he walks out of shul, and guess who's standing right there at the doorway? Herschel's standing there. And he looks at Herschel, and he says, I've been fasting all day. Maybe you can give me something to eat. And Herschel says, of course, come to my house. And they begin walking. And they walk all the way to the edge of the town, right near the forest at the edge of the city. And they come to Herschel's house. It's a very simple house. And Herschel opens the door. As soon as he opens the door, 5 goats come jumping out. They begin licking and climbing and biting Herschel's fingers. And they're climbing all over him, making sounds. And Herschel calms them down a little bit. He brings the Baal Shem Tov into his house. He sits him down. He takes out a pail and he begins milking one of the goats. He fills up a cup of milk and he gives it to the Baal Shem Tov. He says, here, have some goat's milk. It's very healthy. It'll give you energy. It'll give you strength. Baal Shem Tov makes a bracha. He drinks the cup of milk. Herschel offers him another cup. And then the Baal Shem Tov says to Herschel, you know why I'm here? And Herschel says, I know exactly why you're here. And I'll tell you my story. Let me tell you my story. He says, many years ago, I got married to my wife, Hannah. And unfortunately, we weren't blessed with children. And I would, all day I would work. And my wife didn't really have anything to do. But my wife, she didn't have children. She didn't have any children to raise. And I did all the work. But my wife loved doing chesed. She loved helping people. And that's what she would do. She would spend her entire day helping people. Anybody in town who was sick, my wife would visit them, prepare them food. If there were any poor people in the city, my wife would pay them a visit every day, help them out. Anybody suffered any sort of injury, any sort of tragedy in the family, she would go over to lend an ear to listen to them. And she would spend literally her whole day. She didn't have any children. She didn't work. She would spend her whole life. She spent doing chesed. And I was very happy. I supported her every way I can. And about 10 years ago, my wife passed away. And of course, I sat Shiva. I cried for 7 days. I mourned for 7 days. And after the 7 days, I had a dream. And my wife appeared to me in a dream. And she said, Herschel, I got special permission to come down to speak with you. And I want to tell you what happened when I came up to heaven. He says, when I came up to heaven, I received such an honorary welcome. Hundreds of thousands of angels came out to greet me. Tens of thousands of souls of neshamas came out to greet me. I said, what are all these angels coming out to greet me? And the angels tell me, you created us. We were created from your acts of kindness, from your acts of chesed. And they made a whole procession, a whole parade. They marched me into the heavenly court. She said, I saw other people going to the heavenly court. They all had different obstacles they had to pass through before they got to where they were supposed to be. But I was given the red carpet was rolled out in front of me. I'm telling you, you don't know how precious and how valuable in heaven it is when a person does chesed, when a person does acts of kindness. And I was led up to one of the highest areas in Gan Eden. And I requested permission to speak with you because I wanted to tell you, Herschel. I know that throughout my life you've supported me in everything I did and you have a part in all the chesed that I did. But now that I'm gone, I want you to also involve yourself in doing chesed and doing kindness and helping people. I want you, I know you work, but try to find time as much as you're able to help other people. And Herschel says, I woke up and I started to think, how am I supposed to do it? Right? I'm pretty busy all day, right? I don't have that much time. I have a little bit of time in the morning, at night, but I don't have any special abilities, special gifts. what can I do? How can I? And then I realized there was something interesting that I do have. One talent that I do have. I was always very good with animals. Whenever I would go around the city, schlepping, all the animals would come, the dogs, the cats would come to greet me. I would always give them something to eat. And I thought, I can use this out to help people. So I went out and I bought a goat. Right? And I live right near the woods. There's plenty of grazing room outside my house. It doesn't cost much to keep, to feed the goat. And I would care for the goat. And of course, the first day after I got the goat, I sat down, I milked the goat. I filled up 2 bottles of milk. I took 1 bottle to Hannah, the widow, who's having a hard time raising her children, right? They don't have a lot of food in the house. I gave her a bottle of milk. Her children tomorrow morning can wake up, a fresh glass of milk. And then I went to Baruch, who was very sick. And I brought him a bottle of milk. I told him it's very healthy. It'll help you feel better. And slowly over time, I saved up more money and I bought more and more goats. And every free moment that I have, I spend on these goats. I care for the goats. I milk the goats. And then I go around at night delivering bottles of milk. Every poor child in this town wakes up every morning with a glass of fresh goat's milk. Anyone who's sick, right, is brought a bottle of goat's milk. And that's my way of doing chesed. And 10 years passed since then, and I haven't seen my wife for those 10 years, but last night my wife appeared to me again, and she told me that tonight I'm going to meet a rabbi, a tzaddik, and I should tell him over my story. And that's why when I saw you, I brought you to my house and I told you over the story. And the Baal Shem Tov says, well, now I understand. Now that it kind of explains the pillar of fire above your head. And Herschel says to the Baal Shem Tov, if Hashem sent you here, there must be a reason. There must be a reason why you're here. Unfortunately, I never really had the opportunity to learn, never had the opportunity to daven. But you're a big Talmud Chacham, you're a big rabbi. Maybe you could spend a little time learning with me. And the Baal Shem Tov said, of course, if I was sent here, I'm going to try to learn with you. Made a time the next morning. We got up the next morning. I spoke with some of the other hidden tzaddikim. And we set up a schedule. Every day one of us is going to learn with him. And I sat down to learn with Herschel the next morning. And I started to try to teach him Aleph Beis. And I'm telling you, he had the head of a goat. Right? He had the head of a goat. Everything went in one ear and straight out the other ear. I tried to teach him. Nothing went in. And the next day, another one that didn't speak and came. They also learned with him, one after the other. After a month, nothing. There was no progress. So I turned to him and I said, Herschel, maybe this is not for you. It's not, you do a lot of chesed, a lot of kindness. I don't know if learning is. And Herschel says, what do you mean it's not for me? Hashem sent hidden tzaddikim to sit and learn Torah with me. What greater honor? What greater merit? Who cares if I understand it or not? If Hashem wants me to understand, I'll understand it. If not, I have the merit of sitting and learning Torah. And so we continued. We continued another month, half a year, 2 years, 3 years, said the Baal Shem Tov. We taught Herschel every day. It went in one ear and out the other. At the end of 3 years, a miracle happened. Herschel's mind opened up. He became a sponge. Everything we taught him, he remembered, he understood. We taught him how to read. We taught him Chumash, we taught him Rashi, we taught him Mishnah, we taught him Gemara, we taught him Halacha. We started teaching him Kabbalah, we started teaching him the secrets of the Torah. Herschel became one of the hidden tzaddikim, one of the greatest Talmidei Chachamim of the generation. Of course, he kept it hidden. He was one of the hidden tzaddikim. And the story has an interesting ending. Herschel, a few years later, when he was already older, he was too old to schlep and take care of goats. He moved to the city of Astropol. Now, at this point, it was more difficult for him he wasn't really able to do as much chesed as he wanted to, but he found a different way to do chesed, right? He was able to learn and daven, and he spent his time davening for people. Anybody who was sick in town, anybody who needed help, Herschel would spend their time davening for them and trying to learn in their merits, doing chesed in a different way. And one cold, rainy winter day, Herschel passed away. And nobody in Astropol knew who Herschel was. the Chevra Kadisha kind of schlepped together a minion of people who weren't really interested in being there. They came, they listened to Psak, they buried him and they left. Nobody even paid any attention to him. And Herschel's neshama came up to him. And a kitrug, a complaint arose in the heavenly court against the city of Astropol. Is this how you treat one of the greatest tzaddikim of the generation? Such disrespect? And the prosecuting angel got up and he said, we have to do something. The city of Astropol has to be punished. There has to be a decree issued against them. And Herschel himself said, listen, they didn't know who I was. He tried to defend them, but it wasn't working. Me, says the Baal Shem Tov, I got up there and many other tzaddikim of the generation, we went up to heaven and we tried to defend the city of Astropol, but our words had no effect. Many of the angels, Malach Michal, came, he tried to defend them, it didn't have any effect. Until finally Chana, Herschel's wife, came forward. And she says to the court, she says, what are you doing? My husband, me and my husband spent our whole lives doing everything we could to help another person. And you're trying to tell me that another person is going to be harmed because of my husband? That a whole city is going to be harmed because of my husband? How can you do such a thing? And her words completely destroyed any prosecution. And of course, the court accepted her words. Now, Herschel, right? He had a choice. He could have said, who am I? Right? I want to learn, I want to daven, I can't, I'm a simple person. But Herschel said, listen, I have one gift, one talent. How can I use this to help people? Right? I'm able to sit and learn. I don't understand what I'm learning. But I have an opportunity now. There's a hidden tzaddik who's willing to learn with me. I want to understand. But if I don't understand, if this is what Hashem wants, this is what Hashem created me for. This is my role. This is my job in the play, in the production. And he did this for 3 years. He learned for 3 years. And eventually, Hashem changed him. Hashem changed his task. Sometimes it happens. Doesn't always happen. But it's possible for a person's task in life to actually change. And this is what happened with Eliezer. Eliezer was knocked down by Avraham Avinu, who told him, you are cursed. And Eliezer said, you know what? Okay. If that's my task in life, I'm willing to accept it. Eliezer goes on the mission, and throughout the entire Parsha, not once is his name Eliezer mentioned. How is he referred to? He comes to Char and he introduces himself, Eved Avraham Anochi. I am Avraham's servant. That's who I am. That is my job in this world. I'm not a prince, the son of Nimrod. I'm not the great warrior who defeated the 4 kings. I'm not the great teacher who taught over Avraham's Torah. I am Avraham's servant. That is my job, and I'm happy to do this job. And what do the people in Haran tell him? They greet him and they say, Boi Baruch Hashem. Come, the one who is blessed by Hashem. Says the Medrash. What do you mean blessed by Hashem? We just said he's cursed. Says the Medrash, at that moment that he says, I accept my role. At that moment he was transformed from one who is cursed into one who is blessed. Eliezer became blessed. Now, he didn't marry Rivka. He didn't marry Yitzchak. But he became blessed. Eliezer and his family were blessed. Not only that, the Gemara, I think the Derech Eretz Zut, writes that there was a, let's see where it's from. Derech Eretz Zut writes that there were 9 tzaddikim who did not die, who entered Gan Eden alive, who lived forever. One of them was Eliezer Eved Avraham. Avraham's servant Eliezer. The second, Eliezer, comes along and he says, I am willing to accept my role. Eved Avraham Anochi. I don't have the most glamorous role, but in my life, this is my task. I'm the lead actor in my life, and I accept my job and I'm willing to do it. At that moment, the Torah says he's blessed. Not only is he blessed, but the words of Eliezer, a whole parsha in the Torah is dedicated to Eliezer. The Gemara says, the simple words of Eliezer are more holy than the Torah of the greatest Talmidei Chachamim. And he achieved immortality. He's one of the 9 people who lived forever. And this is the lesson for every single one of us. Baruch Hashem, everybody here is blessed. Nobody here is cursed. But sometimes we look at our life, some of us may look at our life and feel like we are cursed. We may look at our life and we say, we want to sit and daven properly. Daven with avodah, but we don't have the patience, we don't have the mind, we don't have the heart to sit and daven properly. We want to learn, but we didn't receive the proper education. We don't have the mind to sit and learn all day. We don't have the time. We're too busy working to sit and learn all day. We want to give tzedakah. We weren't gifted with the money to give tzedakah. We want to do chesed, and there's a limited amount of time. And we have a choice. We can say, I'm the earth. Everybody's stepping on me. I don't want to be the earth. I don't want to be the earth. I don't want to be Eved Avram. I don't want to be Avram's servant. I'm just Matel the bookbinder. Who am I? Right? I'm Herschel the schlepper. Or we could say, I am the lead actor in my production. This is my task. Right? This is my task. And the moment we accept our task, and the moment we say, this is my job, we're transformed from Matel the bookbinder into a Rav Mordechai. We're transformed from Herschel the schlepper to Herschel the goat to Herschel, one of the hidden tzaddikim. We're transformed from Avram's servant into somebody who lives forever and who goes into Gan Eden. And we all need to recognize what our job is. And unlike Be'an Mutlu, who spent hours looking for himself, we should find who we are. We should recognize what our task is in life. And that will allow us, each and every one of us, to become blessed, to get a whole portion in the Torah and to live forever like Eliezer Eved Abram. L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Oh, yeah.